bent. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the foe in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the foe in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going?
Good morning, welcome back to another episode of HardFoul Radio. This is the show that values time and puts God first. We are back. Yes, we had some issues getting started, so we are here a little bit later than we wanted to be, but appreciate anyone tuning in, whether you're tuning on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. TikTok right now is not letting us go live there, which is fine, but appreciate everybody for joining in this wonderful Monday morning. The NFL playoffs are finally here. Oh man, what a time to be alive. So we're going to be going through and breaking down every single matchup. Obviously, the one seeds we're not going to talk about as much this week, mainly because they don't play this week, and that's their reality, right? So let's start with the obvious headline, and a guy who I think everybody is going to attack more than they should, and that is Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills, and all the conversation around, well, Josh Allen has to win this year. If Josh Allen can't win in a year where Lamar Jackson doesn't make the playoffs, Joe Burrow doesn't make the playoffs, Patrick Mahomes doesn't make the playoffs, if he can't win in this scenario, what is he doing? And the reality is, look, man, quarterback is obviously important. It's the most important position in football. But if we've learned anything this year, is that just your quarterback isn't enough. Like, Mahomes is having a statistically, by most common statistics and advanced analytics, was having a better season he had last year. But the Chiefs were flat out better last year than they were this year. And that's why last year, they're 50-1 to make the Super Bowl. This year, they're not in the playoffs whatsoever. The reality for Joe Burrow, who's missed the playoffs multiple times since making the Super Bowl, is his defense has gotten worse and worse. And his reality is that even though he is still great, you are not making the playoffs, let alone the Super Bowl, with that level of defense and that kind of incompetence throughout the roster. Offensive line's not good enough. The defense obviously has been historically awful. Like, yes, quarterback is the most important position, but it can't get it done all by itself. And Lamar Jackson, Lamar, I do think this is somewhat of a coaching, so I still like the Ravens roster in pieces, but despite their big names, Kyle, Tyler Linderbaum, Derrick Henry, like, the Ravens just flat out were not as good this year as last year, and thus Lamar Jackson has not made the playoffs. So those are your four best consensus quarterbacks. Only one made the playoffs. The guy who's a consensus fifth best quarterback, in my opinion, is Matthew Stafford. Look at everything Matthew Stafford has to work with. Devontae Adams, I know he's hurt right now, but the majority of the season had Devontae Adams. Puka Nacua, he's had a great defense. He's got a great coaching staff. And even with that, you see games like yesterday where the seeding matters for the Rams because they get to play the NFC South champ, who we'll talk about them later, because making the playoffs when you're under 500, that's one thing. Hosting a playoff game when you're under 500, that's its own shit show. But these great quarterbacks, flat out, have been let down by their teams. And even as great as they are, like, I've said this so many times, and it doesn't necessarily apply to these guys, but it's relevant for these guys. Brady took consistent pay cuts to make sure he had a roster around him. Think about that. The greatest quarterback of all time took consistent pay cuts to have a great roster around him. He wasn't overly concerned with, oh, am I getting paid the most? Are we the best offense? I have the best coach? He wanted a great roster around him. And that's the greatest we've ever seen. Drew Brees, when he was in New Orleans, when they had a horrible defense, multiple 7-9 seasons. When he had a great defense, they had the one Super Bowl, obviously the win, and then the other, he had a chance to win the Super Bowl, NFC Championship, then into the Rams, one of the worst calls in NFL history. So, yes, everybody is going to attack the quarterbacks. Mahomes not as much because, A, he's won so much because he ended the season injured. People kind of laid off. But Mahomes not making the playoffs, Burrow not making the playoffs, Lamar not making the playoffs. A lot of this is because of the rosters around them and the coaches around them. And Allen, even though he's here and you would think, oh, well, he should win it because the only people that should beat him are the Lamars, are the Mahomes, are the Burrows. His roster, like the Bills' defense, so-so. Yes, James Cook has had a great season, but if it's just him and James Cook and the offensive line has badly regressed, go look at the amount of sacks they took last year versus the amount of sacks this year. The Bills' offensive line has regressed. The defense isn't very good. Like, this is not Josh has to win or he's awful. This is, again, quarterback is super important, but so is your roster. The overall roster. Again, Brady took multiple pay cuts that his roster was incredible. We need to keep that in mind. Coming out of the NFC, look, man, the team that I feel like does actually have to win it, and they've been my Super Bowl pick all year, it's got to be the Rams. Look, the Rams, less than 2 weeks ago, or a little over 2 weeks ago, had a chance. They were up in Seattle, had a chance to get the number 1 seed and basically secure, hey, everything's got to go through LA, put themselves in the best position to win a Super Bowl, are now going to be the 5 seed. They're playing the NFC South winning Carolina Panthers because, of course, they are, because the Panthers looked awful on Saturday because the Falcons won out. There was a 3-way tie, which then caused the Falcons head coach to be fired, the Bucs to miss the playoffs, and the Panthers to win the division. It was all weird. That being said, if you lose because you have a 37-year-old quarterback, you're in a different boat than everybody else. I just watched the John Elway doc this weekend. When you're a 37, when Elway was 37, and he had the best team of his career, he obviously had been to the multiple Super Bowls. He had lost all 3. I was watching my wife. It was an okay doc. To be honest with you, okay doc. But Elway obviously had been blown out in the first 3 Super Bowls. But when I watched it, what was funny about it is it was 39-20 was the first one. She's like, man, they got whooped. And I was like, yeah, that's the close one. Because then they got whooped 55-10 by the Niners, and they lost 45-10 to the Washington. And so this is where Stafford's at his career, though. When Elway was 37 and he had his stacked team and he realized, hey, man, we got to do it. It's now or never. When you're Matthew Stafford and you're 37, your reality is different than everybody. I know I just said Josh Allen. I'm not going to go out as hard. The Rams are in a different boat. Your quarterback's older. You do have a great defense. You do have the weapons. You do have the coaching staff. And now, even with you having to go on the road, you theoretically have the easiest road opponent, the one team in the playoffs that is under 500. It's also a team that potentially stopped you from getting the 1 seed when you lost to the Carolina Panthers at home. And so there is a lot more pressure here because we don't know how many more years Stafford has. We weren't sure if Stafford was coming back this year. And I think, you guys know me, I think Stafford's top 5. I think Stafford's been incredible. I think everything about what this Rams team has accomplished and where they should be, I'm a full hardcore believer in them. That being said, you got to do it this year because there's no guarantee you have 38-year-old Matthew Stafford. He just had, in my opinion, should be the MVP, 46 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Like, he should be the MVP. Drake Mason had an unbelievable season. I think Stafford should be the MVP. You got to do it now, though. Your quarterback's too old. You got the coach. You got the defense. You got the roster. This is different than what Josh Allen's going through in the AFC. You are the one team in the NFC that I truly believe you got to win it. Appreciate everybody for tuning in today. When we come back, like I said, we're going to be going through each divisional round game, breaking them down. Again, we started late, so today's show is only going to be an hour and a half total live. If you're listening back on the podcast, it's probably going to be about 55 minutes to an hour. But appreciate you guys nonetheless. This is HardFoul Radio, back momentarily. And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for tuning in today. So we're going to start with the 2-7 in both conferences. Starting with the one I just objectively care more about because I think it's going to be the team that Denver is going to match up against, and that is the New England Patriots hosting the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, here's the thing. I think this is beneficial for Denver. I do. I think that there is a really good chance that the Chargers can go in and upset New England. I have been, again, New England, what they're doing was really impressive this season. And I think New England, though, has given up more of its playbook than Denver has. Meaning New England went and crushed all these really bad teams. They deserve that. Yes, the strength of schedule is an issue. But what they did, in my opinion, was more significant. Let me rephrase this. New England was beating really bad teams, while Denver was not beating really bad teams convincingly. And I think if you look at Denver's games against some of these bad teams, it was really basic install plans. The offense was really simplistic. There was not a whole lot going on as far as, oh, how clever are you trying to be on offense? How many, big plays are you making? And that's why I think some of these games are closer than they wanted to. I think Sean Payton is reserving stuff for the playoffs. I think New England kind of showed their hand. And why that's going to be unfortunate is because when you play a team like the Chargers with Jim Harbaugh, who is a great coach, and you got Justin Herbert, who, even though he's been getting the hell kicked out of him all season, he is tough. He is an exceptional quarterback, as much as I don't want to give any props to an AFC West team. And I do think the inexperience is going to potentially show up for Drake May in his first playoff game. This is going to be a real challenge. The Chargers defense can put up a fight, and Justin Herbert is one of the few guys who can walk into New England and say, hey, I could be better than your starting quarterback. Not saying he definitively is, because I know New England fans and Drake May and everything that's going on, but Justin Herbert is going to be one of those guys who could walk in and definitively better than your starting quarterback. So between that, the coach could be better, the defense is better. This is kind of the recipe for upsetting a team like New England. And New England's had an amazing season. Again, I don't want to take anything away from them. But this being their best competition easily besides the Bills all season. And I'll be honest, in a weird way, and I know Mr. Bolin, I was watching the Elway doc over the weekend. Mr. Bolin say never root for an AFC West team. I'm not going to say I'm rooting for an AFC West team. But I do think it's ideal if the Chargers were to beat New England and then had to go back to Denver and play. Because, again, the Chargers' easiest weakness is their offensive line. And in that scenario, Denver's got the better defense. Denver's pass rush can really impact and play on the Chargers' biggest weakness, which is their offensive line. And the familiarity with Justin Herbert and Sean Payton, I do think me personally, I have Sean Payton above Jim Harbaugh as a coach. But that's, New England, this is going to be a real challenge as far as a 7-2 seed type of game. So, is this New England's best matchup they could have drawn? I don't believe so. Is this the Chargers' best matchup they could have drawn? Once they were no longer going to win the division, yeah, because I don't think the Chargers wanted anything to do with Houston. I don't think the Chargers wanted anything to do with Buffalo. I don't think the Chargers wanted anything to do with maybe the Chargers' best draw actually would have been the Steelers. I apologize. I don't want to put New England in that boat. But other than that, I think this has a real potential. When you're looking at things that could reasons why a team could upset another team, I 1,000% believe this is one of those ways. They have just as good a quarterback. They have the better coach. They have the better defense. New England, I hope and a lot of these, and we're going to do power rankings tomorrow, a lot of these are going to be matchup specific and game plan specific. So can Josh McDaniels write up a great game plan to go against that Chargers defense for round one of the playoffs? I think it's going to be tough. The other 2-7 is the Bears-Packers, and this would have been way more fun if the Packers weren't so severely hurt. Now, I've also got a thing where Which tomorrow I'm going to lead off with why I think this quarterback class is so amazing. And even though I just said the Chargers have a great chance to upset the Patriots, I think if the Patriots win and if the Bears win this 2-7, we got to talk about this quarterback class in an entirely different light. And I mean all-time light. So, but Bears-Packers, again, a lot of familiarity. The Packers, to me, are just too injured at this point to be a real contender. But does Matt LaFleur have one last? I think both of these 2-seed quarterbacks, by the way, Caleb and Drake, I think these are both tough 7 matchups for them because the Packers know the Bears. They beat the Bears once this season already. And again, does Jordan Love, who's the only quarterback to ever win as a 7 seed, do the Packers have one more real just kick in the groin of Bears fans to end the season? And let's be honest, the Bears did not look good yesterday. That was a really worrying game if you're Bears fans against the Lions. That, oh, look. And again, I know we only killed Denver because when they play close. But if we're going to acknowledge playing a close game against a team that's not as good as you and a team that's resting guys in Detroit, that's a tough look for Chicago. Now, and we'll see, can the Bears, who I think their defense is their biggest problem. Now they can generate turnovers, but Jordan Love he has awful turnovers, but doesn't turn the ball over a lot. Are they going to be able to generate enough turnovers against this Packers offense? Let's see. I think both these 2-7 matchups, really, really tough draws for the 2 seeds, in all honesty. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. So it is a Monday, which means we got to do hard left, hard right. What we got the most right, what we got the most wrong. And with the conclusion of the NFL season, it's only fair that we take what is our biggest thing we got correct and the biggest thing that we were just flat out awfully wrong about. And we'll start with the wrong, because why not? So my wrong, the thing that I got the most wrong this NFL season, has to be a team that I continuously disrespected, a team that I continuously put low on my power rankings, a team that I did not want to give a whole lot of credit or pay a whole lot of mind to, and that was the Jacksonville Jaguars. Look, I could have gone with the Ravens because I was a Raven believer up until the very end, thinking, okay, they're going to do it. They're going to do it. I just believed I didn't care about 1-5. I said as soon as Lamar gets back, they're going to be healthy. But I think genuinely I was more wrong about the Jaguars than I was more wrong about the Ravens. And I was dead ass wrong about the Ravens. So here's the thing. The Jaguars are just one of those teams that, and this is really unfair, and I root for a basketball team that gets the same rep, even though my basketball team's awful right now. But even if they were good, nobody would really feel like they're that good. The Jaguars have everything to win a Super Bowl except the logo. And maybe that sounds really stupid. But the reality is, not a whole lot of people, myself included, took the logo very seriously. There's a clip that the Jags have been playing on this disrespect thing all year, which we'll get into that more later during the week, that the disrespect thing was a little overplayed, but it's fair in this regard. They were playing a clip from a Broncos news show, podcast, radio show from a couple weeks ago that said, hey, if this was just a different logo, like if you put them in like the Ravens logo or the Steelers logo or the Patriots logo in their uniforms, people would take the Jaguars team more seriously. And while that's obviously disrespectful and Jacksonville went into Denver and beat Denver, they deserve all the credit in the world for that. That's kind of true on how a lot of us have evaluated them, is they don't feel like a scary franchise or a scary team or they're not one of the consensus powers in the NFL. So we do look at them differently. But the reality was they were live for the 1 seed until week 18. They went into the current ones, the team that got the 1 seed, Denver's house, and won convincingly. They have beaten a majority of consensus top 10 teams. Trevor Lawrence, who still had one of his biggest flaws, is that he would just have these really goofy plays throughout the season and throughout his career. He has cut down on the goofy plays. Liam Cohen, despite the really weird, awkward first interview, you got to put him in an offensive genius category. The way he has turned around Trevor Lawrence has revitalized Travis Etienne. The offensive line is playing better. They have a legitimate defense because and what makes their defense different than Chicago, because I want to not be hypocritical here, because Chicago fans, I like Chicago, but they're going to say I'm not being fair. Jacksonville gets pressure plus has turnovers. Chicago doesn't generate that much pressure, but generates a bunch of turnovers. And if you're generating pressure, the turnovers make more sense. I think if you're just getting turnovers without the pressure, I think there's a lot more likelihood your defense is a little leakier and streakier, which the Bears, when they play bad, that's what shows in their defense, is that they can't get pressure, but they can still potentially get turnovers, and the defense still isn't that great. But the Jags have a legitimate defense, a legitimate starting quarterback, a legitimate head coach. They have all the tools. They're not going to be scared if they have to go into Denver. They've already won in Denver. I don't think they're going to be scared if they had to go to New England. I think if you feel like you've already won in Denver and you've already won in that environment, which quarterback-wise, obviously the Patriots have the better quarterback, but the Broncos have a better defense. Playing in Mile High is just naturally harder than anywhere else in the NFL because of the altitude. Like, they're not going to fear playing anybody on the road. We're going to get into their matchup here with the 3-6. Jaguar fans have to feel like, even though you drew Josh Allen round 1, if you beat Josh Allen, the Jaguars should feel like they can go to the Super Bowl. And again, I don't think just Josh Allen is enough to get the Bills to the Super Bowl. I said that to open the show. But if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars and you knock out Josh Allen, who do you have left to fear? The answer is nobody. The answer is absolutely no one. The way Trevor Lawrence finished the season, 8-game win streak, he's playing efficient, he's throwing touchdowns, he's playing like the guy who who people believed he could be coming out of Clemson. Again, coaching matters. Trevor Lawrence, to his credit, has had some real dysfunctional coaching. Yes, Peterson was good. That Philly roster was great that he took to the Super Bowl. There was obvious issues there. We're not even going to talk about, like, he had Urban Meyer as a head coach in the NFL. That was its own, obviously, all-time shit show. Like, coaching matters. Trevor finally has the right coach. He's finally got the right team around him. This defense can get pressure. They can generate turnovers. Jacoby Myers has helped unlock this offense. Brian Thomas Jr. had a admittedly horrible start to this season. Honestly, he's played better the last couple of weeks. The Jaguars are a legitimate Super Bowl team, and if they had a logo that we all traditionally respected more, they would probably be them or the Rams. You can make a real argument. They'd be the betting favorite, right? I think the Rams are the betting favorites to win the Super Bowl. If the Jaguars had the Rams logo and Sean McVay as their head coach, and the Rams had Liam Cohen and the Jags logo, I think the Jags would be favorite to win the Super Bowl. Like, the Jaguars legitimately, and again, I continuously put them down on power rankings because I just did not believe in them. I thought Trevor Lawrence makes too many mistakes. I did not think the defense was going to be this good / this great the way they've come along. I was just flat out not a believer in the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I was dead ass wrong. And I own that. And again, I was wrong. There was a couple things. I thought if you want to go the quote unquote silver and bronze award winner for who I was most wrong about this season, I would say silver would probably have to be the Ravens because, again, I just didn't care about any of the things that were happening in front of me. I just believed the Ravens were going to be there by the time the playoffs would have started. I just assumed the Ravens were going to have it figured out. And I was like, oh, they're going to be in the playoffs. Lamar's Lamar. I believe in this team, Derrick Henry, and they just never quite figured it out. And then the bronze medal would have to be Brock Purdy, who deserves credit. I had the opinion last year the 49ers should have drafted another quarterback because I thought their roster was so good that with you could put anybody in Kyle Shanahan's system, you could put anybody in there and they would just keep going. And to his credit, Brock Purdy, again, just proved me dead ass wrong. And with all of the injuries, including injuries to himself, again, Kyle Shanahan would be my coach of the year. But Brock coming back and still not having Fred Warner, still not having Nick Bosa, Brandon Ayuk, that whole situation was weird. Multiple receivers hurt. The defense was just a bunch of – it's why I think it's going to be tough for them to win a Super Bowl. I think the defense sustained too many long-term injuries. But Brock, this last month, the 49ers went a month before this game against Seattle. They went a month without punting. It was incredible. And so Brock Purdy, again, Brock Purdy and the Ravens is dead ass wrong about, and I own that. But I feel like I was most wrong about the Jaguars, who, if you would ask me at the start of the season, just who could potentially be a Super Bowl threat, I would have dismissed the Jaguars, and I continuously dismissed the Jaguars. That's a real team. And they should feel like, again, if they beat Josh Allen and they knock out the last boogeyman quarterback, they should feel like they could win the Super Bowl. That's just the reality of it. Going over too hard, right? And I'm not going to spend a ton of time here because I know I keep beating this horse, but it was because I called my shot at the end of the season, and technically I was wrong. I said the Broncos were going to win 13 games and could win the AFC West. I was wrong. They won 14 games and won the AFC West. Look, I believe wholeheartedly that these last couple of games, I know people haven't been super impressed with the offense, and it's been really basic. I think what Sean Payton is, where I think I'm truly going to be proven right, is what Sean Payton pulls up for game one of the playoffs. And because I think there's a real good chance it is either the Chargers, or whether it's the Chargers or the Bills or the Texans, I think Sean's going to have I think what he did these last couple of games was all basic install stuff. The offense was not spectacular, but I don't think it was designed to be. I think the offense was literally designed to just be okay. They just wanted to be okay. They said, hey, look, if we're just decent, get through the game, we know these other teams can't beat us, and that's what you're supposed to do if you know you're a great team. And again, take the Bo Nix part aside. What I said about this team from day one, I will continue to say it. The offensive line right now is just outright the best offensive line of football. And that's even with, and it sucks, Luke Wattenberg went on IR. But those four other guys, Garrett Bowles, Ben Powers, McGlinchey, Miners, that's the best offensive line of football. The receivers were going to be good enough, and I think Cortland Sutton proved he's the best receiver in the AFC West. I never bought into the whole Rashee Rice is better than him stuff. The running game was going to be fine. Obviously, J.K. Dobbins was a huge loss, but even with that, R.J. Harvey has had a good rookie season. You go over to that defense was every bit as advertised. 68 sacks, led the NFL. It's the fifth most sacks all time for a defense. The secondary, yes, Riley Moss is – people keep saying that if Denver loses, it's going to be because Bo Nix is going to get it done. I kind of believe in the back of my head that if Denver doesn't go all the way, it's because you're going to see Riley Moss get torched in a playoff game, but I still have faith because he's not a bad corner. He's got some really bad moments. But that aside, I was right about almost every single thing. And again, I think Bo, when he has to have it, and when the game plan is there, you're playing against another elite team. I think that Packers game was a huge sign of this is what this offense can be. And I know nobody wants to. Tony flat out said if Bo Nix went to the Super Bowl, he would just stop watching the sport. Do I think that? Do I hold him to that? We'll see for a later show. But this Denver team has absolutely been incredible all season long. They deserve the 1 seed. And to have to go and play in Mile High for another team's chance to go win the Super Bowl, I feel great about Denver's ability to there. I don't care if it's Josh Allen. I don't care if it's the Jaguars, even though they've already won there. I don't care if it's the Chargers. I don't care if it's Patriots. Denver should absolutely feel like you got to come to our house. They should win 2 games. And you got to win it in Denver. Should absolutely feel like they go to the Super Bowl. And that's what I feel like I was the most right about this season. If I want to go silver and bronze, and again, I'm not going to spend a ton of time because I talk a lot of Broncos and team. We're going to go Team Thursday instead of Team Tuesday this week and moving forward. If there's a team that or a silver and bronze place for what I felt I got the most right else during this NFL season, besides calling my shot with Denver, I guess in a negative way, I was right about the Raiders. I didn't think the Raiders were good enough, and obviously the Raiders are now on the opposite end where they're going to be having the number 1 overall pick. So I know those are Tony's Raiders. I'm not trying to go at him, but look, man, I thought the Raider love for that roster thought it was kind of crazy when people had it at the beginning of this season and the beginning of last season. But the Raiders obviously did not play out well enough. And the other team who I still believe in, because I still think they're that good, is the LA Rams. Now, should they feel disappointed they didn't get the 1 seed? 1,000%. 1,000%. But I still think that team, Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, my Stafford top 5 pick, again, I think he should be the MVP. I know Drake May had a great December. We're going to talk about that later this week. But this is the Rams, to me, feeling like the best team in the NFC, even being the 5 seed, to me felt like my bronze place for what I was almost right about this season. This is HardFoul Radio. When we come back, we're discussing the 3-6 matchup in both conferences. This is HardFoul Radio, back momentarily. And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for tuning in today. So, the 3-6 matchups in both conferences. Let's start in the AFC, the Jaguars and the Bills. I already talked a little bit obviously about what I think should be realistic for Josh Allen and this Bills team, who I'm just frankly not as high on as everybody else is. And so, with that being said, I gave this Jaguars team a ton of credit, right? I said, look, they have the potential to be really scary. Oops. Sorry about that. I said they have the potential to be really scary. They've already walked into Denver and beat them. They've beaten a bunch of teams that would be in most people's top 10. It's a real legitimate team in Jacksonville. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. This is a potentially great football team. We just don't respect the logo the same way. Josh Allen has to be Superman. And this is a tough defense to be Superman against, because to be Superman, he has to take chances. And this is the most opportunistic defense on the AFC side. I think Houston and Denver's defense overall are better than Jacksonville, but opportunistically, Jacksonville just flat out gets more turnovers. Like, that's just objectively true. Denver's defense, obviously, its core strength is that they get sacks, and that keeps pushing backs and derail drives. Houston's defense is probably just flat out the best in terms of how hard it is to score / move the ball on them consistently. But Jacksonville's opportunistic. And so Josh Allen, to be Superman, which I believe he's going to have to be in order to make it far in the playoffs, this is a tough team to go be Superman against. Because, yeah, you might get 3 or 4 touchdowns, but are you also going to give them 2 turnovers? And if you give them 2 turnovers, is the gap big enough? Right now, the way they're currently playing, is the gap big enough between current Trevor Lawrence and current Josh Allen? Josh is obviously better. No one's disputing that. But Trevor Lawrence has been playing his ass off these last 2 months, essentially now. The Jags are on an 8-game win streak, and it's not by a fluke. Also, Jacksonville, just kind of a nasty place to play. And I don't mean that disrespectful. I'm using that as a compliment. It gets hot in Jacksonville. Florida weather is it's swamp-like. It's humid. It's a lot of extra sweating that you do even above and beyond just playing football. Like, this is going to be potentially a nasty weather game as far as humidity. Josh has to be Superman. And are the Jaguars going to be able to get enough pressure and force him into 1 or 2 turnovers? I kind of think they do. I think by the time we get to the second round of the playoffs, we potentially don't have any of the big quarterbacks from the AFC side. If the consensus top 4 is Allen, Burrow, not in this order, but Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Lamar, and Josh gets knocked out in the first round, and again, I won't kill him. I think that's more of an indictment on the team than it is him. But this Jags team, like I said, this Jags team is legitimate. And this Bills team feels like Josh Allen, James Cook, some Band-Aids, some duct tape, and just objectively a bad defense. And the run defense we've talked about all year is not great. Travis Etienne has had his best season as a pro. I think Liam Cohen is going to have a great game plan. And Josh McDermott, respectfully, I don't expect to have that level of game plan, especially on defense when his defense has not performed all year, to stop Trevor Lawrence and the Jags and how hot they've been on offense. And I think the Jags actually, like, in football, there's rest versus rust and all those conversations. And as glad as I am Denver has the 1 seed because I want the games to be in Mile High, I do think for most of these teams, just continuing to play is probably the better option. Like, objectively. Like, Seattle and Denver are glad that the games all have to go through their home field, and that does mean something with those kind of home field advantages. But if you're the Jags and you've been on a 2-month heater, continuing to play is probably the better thing. Like, if we're just being honest, continuing to play is probably the best thing the Jags can do. And the way this offense is going, the way this defense is going, they just obviously, again, and I know Obviously, Titans, they're not a great team, not even a good team. They're going to be in top 5 pick. They just have the number 1 pick at quarterback. This offense is something. This defense is something. And if you said top to bottom, who's the better team right now, the Jags or the Bills, you got to go with the Jags. And I think now you can't write off the Bills entirely because Josh Allen does have a level that just, quite frankly, Trevor Lawrence and quite frankly, everybody besides Mahomes, Burrow, and Allen can get to. He could 5-6 touchdown blitz you. But I think that's the only way the Bills can win. And that maybe sounds like really boring analysis, but genuinely, I don't think the Bills' defense is that great. I think James Cook obviously is very good, but it's going to be a tough defense to run on. Receiver-wise, I think the Bills are just okay. Tight end, the Bills have a great tight end room, but that's going to be really tough to take advantage of. Devin Lloyd for the Jaguars, who's led the NFL in interceptions for a linebacker. Like, they have coverage linebackers that can play. I think it's going to be a really tough matchup for the Bills. I think it's going to be a really tough matchup for Josh Allen, who, again, if he goes Superman and he gets you 5-6 touchdowns, fine. But I think that's their only way of winning. And if that's your only way of winning, it's tough. It's like having to play blackjack and the dealer's always hitting 20s. And so the only way you can win is if you have a 21. It's a tough way to make your living. The 3-6 in the NFC side is far more interesting, and that's the Eagles and 49ers, who I'm kind of putting the 49ers in the same boat that I am putting the Packers in, which is so many defensive injuries. I think it's going to be tough here. And I think the Eagles defense is genuinely great. And so I think they're going to be able to slow down the 49ers offense. And that's with Kyle Shanahan. I think he's going to be able to put up a great game plan. But unless Robert Saleh can either get the game plan of his life or Jalen Hurts and this Eagles offense, and this, again, sounds really cliche, but I just don't know what to make of them on a week-to-week basis. They line up on the field, and yes, I think with the Niners' injuries, when you line up Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, like they should convincingly win this game. With all of the Niners' injuries, with all of their talent on offense, and they have a great defense, I just think they should convincingly win this game. And yet, I couldn't be any less convinced they'll do it. Can they? I think they'll be able to contain Christian McCaffrey on defense. I think they'll be able to, again, it's McCaffrey, it's Kittle, and then it's a bunch of guys. I think they'll be able to get a pass rush because Trent Williams, even though he should be back, he's obviously been playing with an injury. He's not 100% himself. So that means the 49ers offensive line obviously things you take advantage of. It's going to be tough for the 49ers to have consistent drives, consistent great offense in this game. But are the Eagles just going to turn – are they, with their great defense, is their offense going to turn the 49ers into their defense? Meaning, are they not going to be able to consistently move the ball, consistently complete passes? Are they going to have one of those halves that they've had this entire year where it just seems like they're a JV offense? This is where Kevin Patullo, Nick Sirianni – they've been getting killed all year for their lack of offensive explosions, their lack of creative game planning. This is where you can rewrite all those narratives. If you come out at home and you get yourself not just a lead. Like, let's say it's a lead is, I'm trying to be realistic here. Let's say it's 14-6 going into the second half. Okay? It's not going to feel good if it's 14-6 entering the second half and then they win that game 14-13. But if you can go into that game 14-6 at the half and win it 27-13, then people will feel like this Eagles team could repeat. You just need 2 consistent halves of football. And can you get one good half because you just have better players? And can you get another good half because you have the right game plan? That's what's going to be on the line for the Eagles. Give us one half where A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, these guys, and the offensive line, Lane Johnson is supposed to be back. Like, they just do it because they're just more talented than what the Niners can present on defense right now with all their injuries. And they give us another half where it's like, okay, this play call or this scheme or like just that's all you got to do. Just put together 2 halves of football against a team that is a great story, but I think is just severely limited with all of the injuries. So 3-6. I think the Jags, if you ask me, and again, my early Monday predictor, which I have the right to change my mind before we get to Friday, the Jags should win their game against the Bills, and the Eagles should win their game against the 49ers. When we come back, looking at the last matchup of the NFL playoffs, the 4-5 in each conference. This is HardFoul Radio, back momentarily. And we are back breaking down the 4-5 matchups in each conference. And I think this one's a little simpler. We'll start with the NFC because I think this one is the Rams have to win. Everything, if the Rams lose to Carolina twice in the season, in which they have all of this momentum, I'm not big on just saying things are an abject disaster. This would be an abject disaster. If the Rams somehow lose to Carolina, who just looked awful on Saturday, if we're being honest, just looked awful. Can Bryce Young throw the ball farther? Like, who throws the ball farther down the field in 2026? Bryce Young or Phillip Rivers? Like, serious question. That offense looked awful. There was no flow to it. There was no momentum. There was no everything about Saturday's game. If you were to tell somebody, like, sometimes we watch football games like, man, how can you not love the NFL? Some of these games are so amazing, incredible. And if you watch Seahawks 49ers, that's high-level football. Even if the score was not out of here, right? It wasn't some big shootout, but that was high-level football. And then if you watch the opening games on Sunday morning and that Carolina-Tampa game on Saturday, you'd be like, why do any of us like football? That was a bad football game. And I'm not saying the Bucs would have been a much better team if they had made the playoffs. They obviously were all under 500. But Carolina, it felt really bad, man. It was a tough watch. Now, here's the problem though. Carolina has had a habit of bad game, great game, bad game, great game. The Rams cannot sleep on them because at home, Carolina objectively has been at baseline good this year. Bad on the road, they've been at least baseline good at home. But you still should not lose to the 4 seed who didn't even have a winning record. And I'm sure Carolina's going to be rocking. That environment's going to be crazy. If you're Matthew Stafford, all the love and momentum from this 46 touchdowns should be the MVP season. Sean McVay, the defense. You go in there lose to the Panthers. Abject disaster. Abject disaster. There's just no other way around it. It's the Rams are better at what? Everything? Quarterback, yes. Head coach, yes. Defense, yes. Receiver, yes. Offensive line, yes. Running game, it's probably the closest, but I'd still go Rams. Like, if you listed your top 10 players in this game, would 8 of them be Rams? Like, think about it. Would 8 of them be Rams? It's just the Rams. You cannot lose this game. You objectively cannot lose this game. This would be awful on so many parts. So, yeah. Am I giving Carolina a chance? Unfortunately, yes, because I just said they've been bad game, great game, bad game, great game. And if they get up early in this game, let's say Rico Dowdle breaks a big one off to start the game, and then the defense gets a turnover, which they turned Matthew Stafford over 3 times the last time they played. That's their recipe. And if they get that, you're gonna, and then can you get a tight Rams team who's now gonna be thinking, oh my gosh, we might lose this. Oh my gosh, this team might not only have taken us out of the 1 seed, but now they're gonna take us out of the playoffs. It's not impossible. It's not impossible. But the Rams, you got to win this one. You got to. You got to, man. And then the last 4 or 5. And if the Rams-Panthers game didn't exist, this would be the most boring game of the first week. And this is Steelers-Texans. Yes, Pittsburgh is hosting a playoff game. Yes, Pittsburgh won that game last night. They just lost it less is the way I kind of view it, but they're here. They're hosting the playoff game. CJ Stroud needs to win this game because I think the defense is going to do what it does. I think the defense for the Houston Texans, I don't care if they have 30 to the Colts. I think they kind of sleepwalked into that game, and Riley Leonard had a few nice plays, and there's not tape on them, and so, but I'm not putting a lot of stock into I still think the Texans have the best defense in the NFL. I think they're even better than Denver. I love Denver's defense, but I think Texans are the number one defense in the NFL. The Texans' offense, though, I think because Denver's been winning games the way they have, and they've been talked about a little bit more as far as their offensive dysfunction, the Texans are kind of a dysfunctional offense. And by kind of a dysfunctional offense, I just mean a dysfunctional offense. And what the Texans don't have, which Denver does have, and what I think is the difference in these two teams, the Broncos have a great offensive line. In my opinion, the best offensive line in football. The Texans aren't anywhere close to that. And TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Cameron Hayward, can they muddy this game up enough and keep CJ Stroud in duress, keep CJ Stroud from being able to create explosives? Can they, create a scheme to contain Nico Collins? Like, are they just going to generate enough pressure where this game is 14-14, 13-13 heading into the fourth quarter, and then Aaron Rodgers just makes a play? Aaron Rodgers just flat out is still capable of making a play. Like, Aaron Rodgers will be able to throw the football, probably throw a pretty football until he's 50. Like, he just has one of those naturally gifted arms. Maybe the most naturally gifted arm. Again, I just watched the Elway doc, and I keep referencing that. Elway maybe has the most gifted arm ever, but Rodgers has a top 5 or 6 gifted arm ever. And is it just a matter of a busted coverage that Aaron Rodgers takes advantage of that CJ Stroud doesn't, and this game turns 20-13 and Pittsburgh wins? See, this is a must-win for CJ Stroud. You should not lose to a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers. You just shouldn't. But it's who makes the better game plan, and something that, and I've been critical of Vance Joseph about this for the past month. Something that needs both the Texans and the Broncos have to be aware of is teams aren't going to let you just beat them with your pass rush. Like, they're not. And a lot of the game plans against Denver this last month has been quick, get the ball, boom, 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 because everybody knows if you hold on to the ball, the team that has 68 sacks, they're going to hit you. And the Broncos have more team sacks. The Texans probably have the better overall pass rushers from an outside perspective. Zach Allen, I don't think gets enough credit. Zach Allen might be the best interior pass rusher in the NFL right now. In my opinion, he is, but that's just bias. Anyway, that pass rush, there's going to be, Aaron Rodgers already throws the ball quick. It's going to be a really quick game plan. And can the Steelers just stay on track enough? This is going to be an ugly playoff game. This is going to be who can sustain the, 4 or 5 drives where they are just keep it chugging along, keep it moving. Can they get to, can the Steelers put together 4 10-plus play drives and get you 20 points out of those 4 drives? And the other 4 or 5 drives, they're not going anywhere because the Texans defense is great. And I think they're going to show up. I don't put a whole lot of stock into the Week 18 game. They're going to show up. This defense is elite. This defense is the best in the NFL. But this offensive line and this offense has a chance to genuinely be season-ending bad. If CJ Stroud has won a playoff game in each of his first 2 seasons, but CJ, obviously, his overall personal play, and some of that is because of the offensive line, has not been as great as it was as a rookie. So, CJ Stroud, can you win this game knowing you got TJ Watt, Highsmith, Hayward on the other side? This is a must-win for CJ Stroud. The Texans should win this game. But I think the Steelers absolutely could make this an ugly game, and we're looking at 20-13 Steelers. Like, that scenario absolutely exists in the ethos. When we come back, why I still believe in the greatest coach of all time argument for Bill Belichick. This is HardFoul Radio, back momentarily. And we are back to close it out here. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for tuning in today. So, something that I want to address, and I want to make sure I'm very clear on this. I don't think that if you have an entire 20-plus year career, that we should slam you for like 1 or 2 bad years. Call me weird. I think if you're great at something for 20 of 22 seasons, I think you're pretty great. I also think this NFL season has taught me, despite him going out on a sour note in the NFL, and despite a lot of the stuff people don't like in college, Bill Belichick's the best head coach in NFL history. And I'm not sure it's particularly close. Bill Belichick does 2 things that I think this regular season proved and something this playoffs is going to prove. And Bill did it better than anyone by a wide margin. The first thing is the regular season. We have all become accustomed to the way sports media rips teams after a singular bad week. And a lot of times we feel like, especially if you're a fan of the team, you're like, wait a minute, we just played great one week. Okay, we didn't play great this week, but now we're supposedly no longer good because we didn't play great this week. We played great this one week. Some of that is Bill Belichick's fault. Never has a team in the history of professional football, at least I'll be fair. Maybe Otto Graham was doing this back when he was winning MVPs and NFL championships. But if you remove Otto Graham and some of those real early Packers teams, maybe Vince Lombardi, this is also his thing. In modern football, no team has been more consistent week in, week out than Bill Belichick's Patriots. It was never, besides the 2007 team, it was never really a matter of, the Patriots were just the most talented or the Patriots were just the best. But the Patriots week in, week out were just always the same team, and it was so annoying. And I've said this before. If you've ever watched your team, if you've ever watched a football team and a fan of a football team, there's always a handful of weeks where you're just like, did the guy show up drunk? What's wrong with them? Slow starts in the first quarter. Inconsistent halves of football. Just looks like they did not care. They did not show up. You never got that with the Patriots. It was like you had to beat them. They were not going to beat themselves. And I have yet to see a team do that. Like, since Bills Patriots, I have yet to see a team do that. The Chiefs, as great as they've been during their dynasty run, you can absolutely see weeks where they're like, we're just better than these guys. We're just going to show up and just prove we're better than these guys. The Rams lost to Carolina. Did not take Carolina seriously. It showed in the game. The Niners, when they had their 5-year run, when they had everybody healthy and in their prime, you could see weeks where it was like, the Niners didn't have it today. Like, this has happened consistently throughout the NFL for every team besides Bills Patriots. And this season was a great example of it because we didn't know week to week who was going to do what. Bill is the only coach I've ever seen in NFL history who just consistently, week in, week out, season in, season out, he brought the same team. That team was always prepared. That team was always focused. The team was always detail-oriented. It is the greatest skill a head coach maybe has ever had. He's not going to get the love like a Bill Walsh, who was credited for an entire new offense, or some of the all-time defense we had. But he is just consistently, week in, week out, you had to beat the Patriots. They were not going to beat themselves. And I've yet to see another coach do that exactly. McVay has great schemes. Shanahan has great schemes. Brian Flores has great schemes. Sean Payton's got great schemes. Nobody gets their team focused and ready to play like Bill got the Patriots every single week. And yeah, obviously some of that you could say is Tom Brady, but we got other great quarterbacks. Mahomes is great. Lamar is great. Burrow is great. Stafford is great. Got all these guys. nobody was consistently as prepared and consistently played the same way week in, week out, like Bill Belichick and the Patriots. And that's what the regular season should prove. Where I think the playoffs is you're going to see at least 2 to 3 games where you're going to wonder, what the hell was the coach thinking with this game plan? And nobody in a big game was better when it came to game plan, creativity, than Bill Belichick. This man shut down the greatest show on turf with a lesser Patriots roster. He shut down Sean McVay's Rams with a still really good Patriots roster, but the Rams offense was historic that year with Jared Goff. He shut them down. He shut, like, his ability to remember, Brady was not Brady in those first couple of Super Bowls. That was defensive led. Yes, he's got the one awful game, if you want to say it, against the Eagles. And personnel-wise, which was Bill's struggle, you could say the personnel decision-making of who he drafted, not playing. I'm blanking. I'm so sorry. I'm blanking on the corner's name, pulling him before the start of the game. Malcolm Butler. Like, there's personnel decisions Bill was not great at. But as far as big game plan, no one in the history of the NFL has ever been better. Bill Walsh, I think, is the only contemporary. When it comes to week in, week out executing and week in, week out focused, attention to detail, your team looks ready to play, no one's ever been better. If this NFL season has taught me anything, is that Bill Belichick is still clearly the greatest head coach of all time. And I didn't need to tell you 7 Super Bowls. I didn't need to tell you how many wins he had. His week in, week out execution and his big game plans are why he is the greatest coach in NFL history. Oh man, appreciate everybody for coming in. Again, we started a little bit late today. We will be here at 4 a.m. tomorrow. Tony is joining us tomorrow as well. So looking forward to that. Appreciate everyone that came in today in the live stream. If you're listening to this back, wherever you get your podcast, iTunes, Spotify. Also, want to say shout out to Dubby again for sponsoring the episode. Use HardFoul 10. Go get yourself some Dubby. Energy now, no crash later. Appreciate you guys so much, and I will see you tomorrow.